Damn it! Why did you do that? You took the bullet for me!
Get out! He's still there!
Female veteran took a bullet for a Hells Angels member hours later. 120 bikers hunted her shooter. The rifle crack echoed through Murphy's Bar parking lot as Navy veteran Harper Kane threw herself between the bullet and Hells Angels President Duke Rock. The .308 round tore through her shoulder instead of Duke's skull. Shooter Kyle Mercer had no idea 120 bikers were about to hunt him across 3 states. Former Petty Officer Harper Kane, 29, had survived 3 Navy deployments only to face unemployment and PTSD in civilian life. This split-second decision to save a stranger would either get her killed or give her the brotherhood she'd lost. Duke Rock watched his blood mix with Harper's on the asphalt, her Navy anchor tattoo visible beneath torn flesh. By nightfall, every Hells Angels chapter from Phoenix to Portland would ride to avenge the woman who'd saved his life. Petty Officer First Class Harper Kane served 6 years as Navy Hospital Corpsman, attached to Marine units through 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan, where her medical skills under fire earned Bronze Star with Valor and the undying respect of Marines whose lives she'd saved through battlefield medicine. Her transition to civilian life had been catastrophic: PTSD nightmares, unemployment despite advanced medical training, and social isolation that made her feel like a ghost haunting a world that had moved on without understanding what she'd sacrificed overseas. The skills that made her invaluable in combat instant decision-making, under fire medical triage, protective instincts for her unit, translated poorly to civilian employment, where employers feared hiring damaged veterans with classified medical experience. Murphy's Bar represented her nightly refuge, a place where alcohol temporarily silenced the voices of Marines she couldn't save and provided anonymous solitude among strangers who didn't ask questions about her scars or thousand-yard stare. Her intervention to save Duke Rock was pure military instinct, seeing incoming fire and throwing herself between the weapon and a potential casualty without calculating personal consequences or considering civilian complications. Duke Rock had led the Phoenix Hells Angels chapter for 8 years, earning respect through intelligence, loyalty, and the kind of strategic thinking that kept motorcycle clubs operational despite constant law enforcement pressure and rival gang threats. His leadership style combined Marine Corps discipline from his own military service with outlaw motorcycle culture that valued brotherhood above law, loyalty above safety, and honor above personal survival when club members faced threats. The assassination attempt wasn't random. Duke's testimony against corrupt police officers had made enemies among law enforcement personnel who used criminal contacts to eliminate witnesses whose cooperation threatened their illegal activities and pension security. Kyle Mercer, professional assassin with law enforcement connections, had been contracted to eliminate Duke Rock before his scheduled testimony could expose police corruption involving drug trafficking, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations that would destroy careers and expose criminal conspiracy reaching highest levels of local law enforcement hierarchy. The shooting began as Duke Rock exited Murphy's Bar after meeting with federal prosecutors preparing his testimony against corrupt Phoenix police officers whose criminal activities his club had documented through years of systematic harassment and illegal surveillance. Harper Kane, sitting alone at the bar's outdoor patio, noticed the rifle muzzle reflecting streetlight from the adjacent building's rooftop, her military training automatically identifying threat assessment and target acquisition that civilians would never recognize. "Gun!" she shouted, launching herself from her chair with the same protective instincts that had saved Marines from sniper fire in Helmand Province. The .308 round, meant for Duke's head, instead tore through Harper's left shoulder, the impact spinning her into the asphalt, where her blood mixed with gravel and motor oil from decades of motorcycle gatherings. Duke Rock found himself alive because a stranger had absorbed bullets meant for his elimination, her Navy medical training evident as she applied pressure to her own wound while scanning for secondary threats that might finish what the first shooter had started. "Ma'am, why?" Duke asked, kneeling beside Harper as sirens approached and club members secured the perimeter with tactical precision that impressed the veteran who just saved their president's life. Harper's medical training kicked in despite shock and blood loss. Her combat corpsman experience taking control as she assessed her own injuries while remaining alert for additional threats that professional assassinations often included. "Through and through missed the artery, but I need pressure and transport to trauma center immediately," she told Duke with clinical precision that revealed military medical background. Duke's Marines training recognized professional competence under fire. This wasn't random civilian heroics, but trained military response from someone who'd operated under enemy fire and knew how to function despite combat injuries. "You military?" Duke asked while applying pressure to Harper's wound with the same battlefield medicine he'd learned in Iraq. "Navy hospital corpsman attached to Marines' 3 deployments Afghanistan." Harper replied, her voice steady, despite pain that would have incapacitated untrained civilians. "Jesus Christ, you threw yourself between a rifle and a stranger?" "Why, same reason I threw myself between Taliban fighters and wounded Marines. Nobody dies on my watch if I can prevent it." The statement revealed character that resonated with outlaw motorcycle culture that valued loyalty, courage, and protective brotherhood above personal safety or legal consequences. Paramedics arrived to find a professionally dressed wound and a patient whose vital signs and coherent responses indicated military medical training that had prevented shock and potentially fatal blood loss through immediate self-treatment. "Ma'am, you applied perfect pressure and positioned yourself to prevent arterial bleeding. You medical?" asked EMT Rodriguez, former Navy corpsman. "I've treated worse injuries in worse conditions with worse equipment." Duke rode in the ambulance with Harper, making calls that activated Hells Angels networks across the Southwest with news that would transform an assassination attempt into the largest biker manhunt in Arizona history. "Road Captain Martinez, this is Duke. Someone tried to take me out tonight. Navy veteran named Harper Kane took the bullet meant for me. I want Kyle Mercer found and brought to justice, biker justice." The response was immediate and overwhelming. 120 Harley-Davidson engines firing across 3 states as Hells Angels chapters prepared to hunt the man who'd shot the woman whose courage had saved their president's life. Harper's intervention had activated brotherhood bonds that would pursue Kyle Mercer with the same intensity Marines had shown hunting Taliban fighters who'd threatened their corpsmen. Duke's emergency call spread through Hells Angels networks with the efficiency of military communications activating chapters from Tucson to Sacramento with news that would unite rival factions against common enemy who'd attacked their brotherhood through proxies. All chapters. This is Phoenix Duke. professional assassin Kyle Mercer attempted elimination of club leadership. Navy veteran Harper Kane took rounds meant for me currently in surgery at Phoenix Memorial. We ride at dawn to find Mercer and deliver biker justice. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 120 motorcycles representing 47 chapters across Arizona, California, and Nevada, preparing for coordinated manhunt that would demonstrate Hell's Angels' capability when their brotherhood faced professional assassination attempts. Road Captain Steele Martinez coordinated tactical response with military precision that reflected veteran membership throughout motorcycle club culture. Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, and Vegas chapters rolling heavy. Mercer's got nowhere to hide from this many brothers. The manhunt would demonstrate Hell's Angels' loyalty to civilians whose courage earned respect regardless of their legal status or law enforcement opinions about outlaw motorcycle club activities. "Duke, what's special about this Navy girl?" asked Tank Williams from the California chapter. "She threw herself between a rifle and a stranger without hesitation. That's Marine Corps values. In civilian clothes, we protect people who protect us." Harper's surgery revealed extensive combat scars that told stories of battlefield medicine under fire, shrapnel wounds, burn marks, and surgical scars from injuries sustained while saving Marines in Afghanistan's most dangerous provinces. Duke maintained bedside vigil with the dedication he'd shown for wounded club members, recognizing that Harper's sacrifice deserved the same loyalty she'd demonstrated through her intervention. Doc, her medical records show extensive combat experience as Navy hospital corpsman. She's treated battlefield trauma that makes civilian gunshot wounds routine medical procedures. Dr. Patricia Santos herself, a Navy Reserve officer, understood the significance. Mr. Rock, she applied perfect battlefield medicine to her own wound while maintaining tactical awareness for secondary threats. Her training saved her life, and possibly yours. The revelation that Harper was combat-trained medical personnel elevated her status within Hell's Angels culture that respected military service, particularly veterans whose skills translated directly to motorcycle club operations. "She's not just brave, she's trained for this kind of shit," Duke explained to arriving club members. Navy corpsman who's treated combat wounds under fire. This assassination attempt was handled by someone who survived worse situations with better equipment. The combination of military training and selfless courage created bonds that transcended traditional civilian biker boundaries. Hell's Angels chapters coordinated manhunt with military precision that impressed law enforcement agencies monitoring motorcycle club activities through federal surveillance programs designed to track organized crime. Mercer's holdup in Tucson safe house, probably planning extraction through Mexico border crossings, reported Blade Peterson, former Army Ranger whose tactical reconnaissance skills had transitioned seamlessly to motorcycle club intelligence operations. Duke coordinated response through encrypted communications that prevented law enforcement interception while maintaining operational security that would have impressed special operations units. Brothers, this isn't revenge, it's justice for someone who took bullets meant for club leadership. Harper Kane deserves the same protection we'd provide for any member who demonstrated courage under fire. The manhunt represented unprecedented cooperation between Hell's Angels chapters that normally maintain territorial boundaries and competitive relationships over drug trafficking, illegal weapon sales, and other criminal enterprises. Tank Coordinate Southern Approach, steal secure northern exits, gunner establish overwatch positions. We find Mercer and deliver him to federal authorities who want him for other contracts. The tactical sophistication impressed FBI agents monitoring the operation, proving that outlaw motorcycle clubs possessed military capabilities that extended beyond civilian criminal activities into coordinated operations that could support or threaten national security, depending on their objectives and loyalties. FBI agent Sarah Martinez arrived at Phoenix Memorial Hospital to interview Harper about the assassination attempt, discovering that Hells Angels manhunt was actually supporting federal investigation into professional assassin networks operating across the Southwest. Ms. Kane, your intervention prevented a contract killing that was designed to eliminate witness testimony in federal prosecution of police corruption cases. Agent Martinez explained. Harper, recovering from surgery, with Duke maintaining protective vigil, recognized federal authority that could coordinate with motorcycle club resources rather than treating them as criminal organizations. Agent Martinez Kyle Mercer was positioned for precise elimination shot. This wasn't random violence. It was professional assassination targeting someone whose testimony threatens law enforcement corruption. Duke provided intelligence that Hells Angels had gathered through years of surveillance documenting police criminal activities that federal investigators had been unable to penetrate through traditional law enforcement channels. Agent My Club has documented systematic corruption involving drug trafficking, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations by Phoenix PD personnel who contracted Mercer to eliminate my testimony. The revelation transformed Outlaw Motorcycle Club from criminal organization into federal intelligence asset whose street-level surveillance provided evidence that conventional law enforcement couldn't access through legal channels. Mr. Rock, your cooperation could result in federal immunity for club activities in exchange for testimony and evidence supporting corruption prosecutions. The partnership between federal authorities and Hells Angels represented unprecedented cooperation that served mutual interests while protecting Harper from retaliation by corrupt officials whose criminal activities she'd inadvertently exposed. Hells Angels manhunt located Kyle Mercer within 18 hours through street-level intelligence networks that exceeded federal law enforcement capabilities in urban environments where criminal activities remained hidden from official surveillance. Duke, we found Mercer at Safe House on South Side, probably waiting for extraction transport to Mexico border. Reported Road Captain Martinez through encrypted communications that FBI agents were monitoring with judicial approval. Federal tactical teams coordinated with Hells Angels spotters to surround Mercer's position without alerting corrupt police personnel who might warn the assassin about impending arrest operations. Agent Martinez, my brothers have Mercer under surveillance with tactical overwatch that prevents escape attempts while federal agents prepare arrest warrants. Duke explained. The cooperation demonstrated that outlaw motorcycle clubs possessed intelligence-gathering capabilities that complemented rather than competed with federal law enforcement when objectives aligned around mutual enemies. Mr. Rock, your club's surveillance prevented Mercer from crossing into Mexico, where extradition would complicate prosecution. This cooperation will be noted in federal records. Harper watched from her hospital bed as enemies who tried to kill Duke became allies whose cooperation served justice through channels that civilian authorities couldn't access independently. Duke, your brothers risked federal prosecution to find my shooter. Why? Because you risked your life to save mine without knowing anything about me, except that someone was trying to kill me. That's brotherhood loyalty that transcends club membership. Kyle Mercer's arrest by federal agents coordinated through Hell's Angels intelligence revealed extensive assassination network that included corrupt police officers, criminal prosecutors, and judicial personnel whose illegal activities required professional elimination services. Mercer, you're charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and federal civil rights violations for targeting witnesses in corruption investigations, announced U.S. Attorney Patricia Santos. The investigation exposed systematic corruption that extended beyond Phoenix into federal law enforcement agencies, whose personnel had been compromised through criminal associations that threatened national security through institutional infiltration. Ms. Kane, your intervention prevented assassination that would have eliminated key witness testimony in cases affecting federal law enforcement integrity nationwide. Agent Martinez explained, Harper's heroic action had inadvertently triggered federal investigation that would result in prosecutions affecting law enforcement personnel across multiple states whose corruption required professional assassins to maintain operational security. Your courage exposed criminal conspiracy that federal authorities had been unable to penetrate through conventional investigative techniques. Hell's Angels cooperation provided street-level intelligence that supported national security objectives. The partnership between Navy Veteran Outlaw Motorcycle Club and federal authorities created unprecedented cooperation that served justice while demonstrating that criminal organizations could support national interests when properly incentivized through mutual respect and shared objectives. Harper realized her split-second decision to save a stranger had activated networks that would transform law enforcement corruption prosecution nationwide. Within 72 hours, Kyle Mercer was federally charged with attempted murder conspiracy and operating professional assassination networks that served corrupt law enforcement personnel across multiple states. His arrest led to 17 additional prosecutions of police officers, prosecutors, and judges whose criminal activities required professional elimination services. Harper's heroism inspired unprecedented cooperation between federal authorities and outlaw motorcycle clubs, whose street-level intelligence provided evidence that conventional law enforcement couldn't access through legal surveillance channels. Hell's Angels chapters received federal immunity for cooperation in corruption prosecutions, transforming criminal organizations into intelligence assets, serving national security objectives against institutionally embedded criminal networks. Duke Rock's testimony, protected through Harper's sacrifice, resulted in convictions that dismantled corruption networks affecting federal law enforcement integrity from Arizona to Washington, D.C. Most importantly, Harper's courage created bonds with Motorcycle Brotherhood that provided civilian employment, medical care, and social support that government veteran services had failed to deliver effectively. The Navy Department awarded Harper the Civilian Heroism Medal for actions that prevented assassination while supporting federal law enforcement objectives through personal courage that exemplified naval service values in civilian contexts. Hell's Angels established the Harper Kane Memorial Fund, supporting disabled veterans whose civilian transition required resources that government programs couldn't provide through institutional channels constrained by bureaucratic limitations. Harper became official Hells Angels liaison with federal Veterans Affairs agencies, bridging military and motorcycle cultures that shared values of loyalty, courage, and brotherhood, transcending legal boundaries or social prejudices. Congressional Veterans Affairs committees used Harper's case to demonstrate that veteran support required community partnerships extending beyond government programs into civilian organizations whose resources complemented federal services. Corporate sponsors supported Harper's veteran advocacy work through Hells Angels community outreach programs that provided employment, housing, and medical care for disabled veterans facing civilian transition challenges. Harper's integration into Hells Angels culture provided the military-style brotherhood she'd lost during transition from naval service to civilian isolation that had nearly destroyed her psychological health and social connections. Duke Rock established veteran outreach programs through motorcycle club networks that provided employment advocacy and protective services for former military personnel facing civilian challenges that government programs couldn't address effectively. The hospital where Harper recovered became a symbol of cooperation between military, federal, and outlaw cultures, united through shared values of courage, loyalty, and protective instincts that transcended legal categories. Harper's shoulder scar became a badge of honor, representing the moment her military training saved civilian life while activating brotherhood networks that would support her veteran transition through community resources that government agencies couldn't provide through institutional limitations and bureaucratic constraints. The Kane Protocol revolutionized veteran transition services by incorporating community partnership with organizations whose resources complemented government programs through direct action and immediate response capabilities that bureaucratic agencies couldn't match. Harper addressed Veterans Affairs committees monthly. Military brotherhood doesn't end with discharge, it transforms into civilian partnerships that provide resources and support that government programs can't deliver through institutional channels. The Department of Veterans Affairs created partnership programs with motorcycle clubs, fraternal organizations, and community groups whose veteran membership provided peer support, employment opportunities, and social integration that professional counselors couldn't replicate through clinical interventions. Federal funding supported veteran outreach through non-traditional partnerships that demonstrated measurable improvements in employment, housing stability, and psychological health, compared to conventional government programming that often failed veteran transition requirements. Corporate insurance policies began covering veteran support through community partnerships, recognizing that alternative approaches produced better outcomes while reducing long-term healthcare costs. Harper Kane discovered that her military training, once seemingly irrelevant to civilian employment, became the foundation for veteran advocacy that bridged military and civilian communities through shared values rather than institutional programming. Her work with Hells Angels veteran outreach programs provided employment, housing, and medical care for hundreds of former military personnel whose transition challenges exceeded government program capabilities. The bar where she saved Duke's life now serves as headquarters for veteran support services that combine military brotherhood with motorcycle club resources, creating community partnerships that government agencies couldn't establish through conventional outreach efforts. Harper continues veteran advocacy while maintaining her Hells Angels brotherhood, knowing her courage created networks that would support military transition for generations. The Murphy's Bar incident proved that military brotherhood transcends service boundaries, extending into civilian communities where shared values create partnerships that serve veterans more effectively than institutional programming alone. Harper learned that courage required for military service translated directly to civilian heroism, protecting others regardless of personal consequences or social boundaries that separated military and outlaw cultures. Honor earned through military service creates bonds that transcend legal categories when courage activates brotherhood networks. Sometimes, the most effective veteran support comes from unexpected sources whose loyalty matches military dedication to protecting those who served. In the end, Harper Kane learned that the same protective instincts that made her a decorated Navy corpsman made her a bridge between military and civilian brotherhood. The uniform changed to leather and steel, but the mission remained constant: no veteran left behind.